The Podski with Johnny Bake Show. For over 2 years, the revolutionary force in audio entertainment.
Oh, yeah!
Brother,
Let me talk to you! Freak out, freak out!
I just had an out-of-body experience!
Insane in the membrane!
Brother!
Yeah! And I'm here for only one reason, and that's to take it to the limit, yeah!
Somebody stop the damn man!
I'm living on the edge.
Who is your daddy?
Hello and welcome to the Podski. I'm your host, Johnny Bake Show, and ringside with me is Teddy Mongoose. The SummerSlam tour rolls on here today as we review SummerSlam 2004. We have a jam-packed show for you here today, but before we bring Teddy in, let us know in the comments if you remember this SummerSlam and what your thoughts are. We love your feedback. If you're a new listener here to the Podski, make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to support what we're doing here on the Podski, so we thank you for listening. Be sure to check out last week's episode. We did Chris Jericho's WWF debut in 1999, and go check out the show that leads us here to today's topic, which is the 60-minute Iron Man match from July 26th, 2004. And that's kind of where we're going to pick up here today, Teddy. So welcome into the show, and what do you got cooking for us this week for SummerSlam 2004?
So we just finished off with the last Raw in July, so we'll pick up with some July business comparisons with the WWE in 2004, and there's no way to spin it. Business is officially down. So the company is obviously not in ruins, but they are down in literally every metric compared to the same time the prior year. So for estimated average attendance in July 2004, and this is house shows, we have 3,279 people, which is down 26.8% year over year. That number was 4,480 in July 2003, and it's down from 4,362 in June 2004.
Yeah, the Observer said that live attendance for the month was the lowest average since December of 95, right after Brett had won the WWF title from Kevin Nash. And this was actually the start of the company turning attendance around, because after Brett won the title, attendance did slowly creep back up. But what does the comparison look like between the brands of Raw and SmackDown here?
So Raw's house show attendance for July averaged 2,033 people per show, which was a record low at that time.
Wow. That is insane to think about because of the storylines that they got lined up. That is crazy.
With coming off of the hot Raws that they were putting on TV and off of the Hell in a Cell and everything in June, it is wild.
Yeah. And that's with Triple H and Benoit are in the main events even before the Iron match even took place too.
Correct. So yes, those house shows with that low attendance were all main evented by Triple H and Benoit. And the reports, we went through those when we did that show 2 weeks ago. The reports were that match was great. Like everybody glowed about the match and nobody paid to go see it.
It's a good thing you mentioned that too, because they ran through different variations of the match and each time they got better.
Correct. And so off of that, they were over 3,000 people per show in 2 of the previous 3 months. So they are literally at 2,000 right here. So attendance is like cut in third. TV still doing over 7,000 per taping. So the attendance for the actual tapings is solid for Raw, but nobody's coming to the house show. And speaking of tapings, the craziest stat is SmackDown actually edged Raw in average attendance at house shows. It was literally only by 26 people, but TV attendance was down for the second straight month in SmackDown.
So SmackDown is literally the opposite of Raw. House shows aren't good, but at least they're like not cratering. The TV tapings are where they took the hit, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. So Raw has strong TV and nobody coming for house shows. SmackDown is keeping head above water in house shows and has less people coming to TV, man. So a couple of other metrics here. The estimated average gate for July 2004 is $113,479. That's down 23.6% year over year. In July 2003, they did $148,589 a show. And then in June, they did $154,000 plus per show. Percentage of house shows sold out, 0. It was 0 the last time that we did this. It was 5% in July 2003. And the average Raw rating for July 2004 is at 3.66. It's down 11.2% year over year. It was 4.12 in July 2003, but it was only at 3.73 in June 2004. So a little dip there. And then for SmackDown, the average SmackDown rating for July 2004 is 3.17. That is down 5.4% year over year. It was 3.35 in July 2003. And it is actually up from June 2004 when it was 3.10.
Those are all very interesting numbers. And we kind of mentioned this last time that there's always a summer lull in the WWE, wrestling in general. And I brought up the vacation point that people are going on vacations during this time of the year. This is vacation season, but I also wonder, like, in the SmackDown realm for the TV tapings, do you think people are getting fatigued with the fact that they're probably recording all of this on a Tuesday night?
So here was the argument, and I don't know how you beat it. You were right when you said about the vacation, summer lull and everything, but it was still summer in July 2003.
Well,
do you know what I'm saying? So, and that would be the counterpoint, right? And so with TV ratings specifically, Raw is ebbing and flowing, but it's basically within its average all year. SmackDown is actually ticking up. The low point for the show was actually in May. And so the big hit here, and this is where the argument could sort of be made about people are busy, because if people are busy and your product isn't hot, quote unquote, maybe you aren't going to pay to go to the house shows, but you're still going to watch on TV or you're still going to go to TV. So business is down with the TV stuff, but it's not nearly as bad as it is with the house show, business, attendance, everything else. So as far as the biggest monthly show went for the month of July, that was Vengeance. Check that out in the archives. Vengeance 2004 did 7,000 people, 6,000 paid, $370,000 live gate, an estimated 0.43 buy rate, 3.49 million in estimated company revenue. That is down 37.7% year over year with Vengeance 2003. That show did 9,500 people paid, $475,000 gate, a 0.69 buy rate with an estimated 5.41 million in company revenue.
So that disproves the idea that the drop in business is all on SmackDown, because they're literally over 1/3 of your buy rate and revenue cut year over year with the Raw shows. That's crazy. But Raw is the premier brand here. They have everything, and SmackDown has nothing.
Yep, they're loaded up with all the stars, man, all the main event players. They really are.
Yeah, and also, I'm sure, too, that this is a symptom of having all those pay-per-views, literally 3 pay-per-views in 6 weeks. And we covered the Vengeance show. We covered Bad Blood. We also covered Great American Bash. They're all in the archives. Go check those out. They're linked in the description below in the 2004 playlist as well. Okay, so that was all business. How do we catch the people up on what's actually happening on SmackDown? Because we've been all about Raw here on the Podski.
Yeah, we've been Raw-centric since the Great American Bash. We basically, might have mentioned it here and there, but it was sort of the way that we treat WCW in 1999, just sort of use it as a comparison thing as opposed to actually giving updates. So as I just said, our last review of SmackDown, Great American Bash 2004, that happened at the end of June. And if you recall, this show had Cena retaining the title in a 4-way. We had Rey Mysterio beating Chavito for the Cruiserweight Championship. Kenzo Suzuki beat Billy Gunn in an all-timer. Mordecai beat Hardcore Holly in a match where Holly just beat him up anyways. And then we finished the show with JBL retaining the title in a bull rope match. And then The Undertaker beats both Dudleys and murders another parent-like figure by burying Paul Bearer in an aquarium filled with cement.
I don't think I could have said that any better. An aquarium full of cement is exact. Paul Bearer was the big cement block in the aquarium just hanging out.
Yep.
Kenzo Suzuki Billy Gunn is an all-time stinker. And our buddy, we can't get away from Hardcore Holly. And spoiler alert, he's not on this SummerSlam. Thank the Lord above.
I couldn't believe it. I feel like it's the first time in 2024 we've done a show without Hardcore Holly on it.
I'm sure he's coming up here soon because there is not a show that goes by that we can't get away from Hardcore Holly and Bradshaw. So maybe he's coming up soon, but he's not on SummerSlam.
You got that right, man. So what do we got going on storyline wise in our time since the Bash there, brother?
The first thing is, as we touched on the last show, the preliminary numbers for the Bash were actually really strong, all things considered. Meltzer reported that estimates had the show in the 250,000 buy range, and that number shocked the hell out of Dave, as they were only expected to do around 185,000.
So Dave reported a week after that the initial estimate numbers were 240,000 buys and a 0.44 buy rate, which was only down 15,000 from Bad Blood, and that had the Hell in a Cell. And the 240,000 buys is actually up 35,000 buys from Judgment Day. And you remember that was the big bloody, Eddie match in LA at that time. And the crazy thing here is, even though the shows themselves aren't tearing it up, if you combine Bad Blood and Great American Bash, you have almost 500,000 buys in that month. And that's huge. So comparatively, we just said year over year with the month of July, pay-per-view is way down, but that total 500,000 buys is a huge number.
And Dave said, quote, "It's a sign that the move to Layfield as a main eventer was not a failure, as traditionally, pay-per-view matches don't draw nearly as well as their first meetings a month earlier, unless the stips are what draws the rematch, like a Hell in a Cell type match." Also, to sort of echo what we talked about at the start of the show, the really fascinating thing is that Judgment Day drew an $813,000 live gate in Los Angeles, but it only did 205,000 buys. And then the Bash did a pay-per-view show in Norfolk for the first time and did $320,000 live gate, but did 240,000 buys. So Teddy, are you ready for some rapid fire SmackDown storyline catch up?
Hey, here we go, man. Rev up the engines. It's time for the Smackdown rundown. The fallout from the Great American Bash show had the segment where Kurt said that JBL could defend against anybody but Eddie. JBL picks a Dudley, and that Dudley happens to be Spike. This then sets the groundwork for Angle versus Eddie at SummerSlam. Now it's getting personal, right? The show also had Luther Reigns give Lil Nate the business for botching the Torrie Wilson Sable finish. And so the two had to wrestle again. And apparently at the taping, this was so bad that they came out later in the taping and redid the match.
Well, at least Torrie and Sable can say they did something in the ring that Macho and Flair did.
Insert Spider-Man meme here, as they are literally exactly the same. So this show also set up Eddie and JBL in a cage, Cena and Kenzo Suzuki's potential program, but then we find out that Booker T will actually end up being the guy later on.
And speaking of abandoned ideas, the Observer reported that 2 weeks before this match, the initial idea was Mordecai versus Eddie Guerrero for the title at SummerSlam. Oh my God.
You come out with a staff and you're a white devil, like you're the light bringer instead of the Prince of Darkness, then yeah, we got big things coming for you. The problem is Bob Holly sandbagged that ass straight back to developmental.
Yes, unfortunately, after the Bash, he did the job to Mysterio and he was sent back to OVW.
T's and P's, man. And while we're at it, Paul Bearer confirmed not dead after this show. They just said that he has some severe lung problems along with other internal injuries after breathing in cement until he was freed, I guess.
Oh, concrete lung.
Right. CL.
CL Bear.
Yeah, it's a really, really tough life to live. Teddy Long also gets dropped as Jindrak's manager, but he's about to be moving on up. We'll get to him. Paul London and Billy Kidman are your new tag champs. They beat the Dudleys. And Spike is doing the deal where he's refusing help from his cousin brothers, and then he keeps losing. So we're doing the deal where, he's getting frustrated, he's losing, and then they finally help him get a pin in a tag match. And now we have seeds planted for that alliance later on.
We also have John Cena and Kenzo Suzuki getting in each other's business, but the program seems to be dropped when Luther Reigns runs in during a Cena and Booker team match. That leads us to Booker, Rene Dupree, and Kenzo Suzuki segment the next week, where Angle booked a handicap elimination match where Booker beat Cena after Suzuki got DQ'd and Dupree was pinned.
Also of note at this time, Heidenreich debuted as Paul Heyman's new protege.
Whoa, I love me some Heidenreich.
Yep.
We had the angle where JBL was wrestling El Gran Luchador, who was Shannon Moore, and Eddie replaced him with the Killer Bee switch to set up the cage match between the two. So in that cage match, Kurt Angle runs in dressed as El Gran Luchador to screw Eddie out of beating JBL, and our SummerSlam match is set.
Yeah, the match went almost 30 minutes, and Dave gave it some praise. He said that the initial reports from the taping said that it was better than the LA match. And he didn't agree, thought it was good, but not that good. He gave it 3.5 stars. And the huge spot in this match was Eddie giving JBL the Snuka splash off the top of the cage, which JBL actually kicked out of.
I remember that. That was insane. Him going off the top of that cage was insanity.
Yeah, and the crazy thing was that as a devil disciple, Bradshaw would just get pinned in the middle with the Uranagi, and now he's kicking out at top of the cage splashes.
Right. That's what happens when you get that big push.
Or whenever you find money on Wall Street.
That is true. And you get Longhorns on your limo. Some quick news nuggets out of these 3 weeks. Dave wrote in the July 19th, 2004 Observer that the current U.S. title plan is to crown a new champion, have Cena show up with his own U.S. belt saying that he's the real champ, and then have a unification match at SummerSlam. Also, Mordecai was told to change his look, so he cut his hair, and the current house show program has JBL versus Undertaker as advertised in no DQ matches, so in theory, the dead man will be jobbing on the road to the hottest show of the summer. And
that doesn't hold. I get spoiler alert for people that obviously didn't go to house shows at that time. they certainly changed that so that the dead man was walking and not staring at the lights. Do you know what I mean? But as bad as house shows might be domestically, SmackDown actually did 2 consecutive $1 million gates in Tokyo during a 2-day tour in mid-July. Angle actually came back as an unadvertised return and then main evented the second night. He teamed with JBL against Eddie and The Undertaker.
So from those shows, the first night, Eddie actually pulled his hamstring, and to cover that, on the second night, they had Angle attack him with a chair at the start of the match, and then after Undertaker held his own for a while in the 2-on-1, he took both JBL and Angle's finishes, and Eddie made the save at the end. The babyfaces got the win after Taker tombstoned JBL, and Eddie hit the frog splash on Angle and pinned him.
And after the Japanese tour, we got the heavy hitter Angles for SummerSlam. So we're back on TV.
Right. So Angle came out in a wheelchair saying he put himself at risk to save the title. He fired the ring announcer for announcing that Eddie beat him at WrestleMania. He also handed the U.S. title over to Booker T, fired Funaki for butchering the English language. How do you fire Funaki? He's the #1 SmackDown announcer. He then fired Tori Wilson, Dawn Marie, Sable, and Jackie mid-match. At the end of the show, just before Kurt can fire Eddie, Vince returns and fired Angle as GM, and he said he's wrestling Eddie at SummerSlam.
And what a segment that was.
Yep, it was.
Vince swinging that crutch like just a psycho killer was so good. Do you want to test Kurt's athletic ability? have Vince come swinging a shoot crutch at him like it was an aluminum bat, man. That was something. Dude, what a way to go out. Firing a ring announcer, all the women, Funaki.
Going out in a blaze of glory.
I love it, man. So this show also had Cena pinning Luther Reigns after Booker T tried to hit Cena with the belt. He missed and he hit Reigns instead. And now Spike's starting to get his mini push here. He won a 3-way over Chavito and Jamie Noble to get a cruiserweight title shot at Rey Mysterio. For some other news going on this week, people are said to be warning Vince about putting Heidenreich in a featured position, but the plan right now is to have him work with The Undertaker after SummerSlam. And there's reports that The Undertaker's working with Heidenreich a lot backstage to try to prep him for the program. So, John, we got anything else of note from our last SmackDown in July as we warp speeded this month?
The July 29th SmackDown had a segment with 8 guys in the ring saying they want the U.S. title. Vince comes out and introduces Teddy Long as your new SmackDown GM. Teddy then buries Booker for haterizing on SmackDown and booked an 8-man elimination for the title. Later in the show, we had Kurt and Teddy making backstage magic.
Teddy Long, not me. I unfortunately was not able to make magic with Kurt Angle, although at that point in time, I wish I was.
Oh my, but these 2 segments are all over the shorts, so please go check those out. They are so good. Please check those out. We also have Spike Dudley pinning Rey Mysterio to win the Cruiserweight title after Devon distracted the ref and Bubba tripped Rey. Spike hit the Dudley Dog for the win. After Spike realized what happened, he apologized to Rey. These last 2 SmackDowns are just throwing haymakers because we get Eddie stealing all of Kurt's office segment. When Eddie tried to auction off Kurt's gold medals, Angle came out, tried to steal Eddie's lowrider, but he gets the powder in the face because Eddie set a trap for him. That is also on the shorts. Go check that out as well.
And this is Kurt at his best, man. It is. It's him at his absolute best. Heel that is a nerd, and he's the best nerd heel ever. Because then they're going to crank this up and turn this into an actual match. And it's going to be freaking awesome. He's such a good entertainer, man.
He really is. The main event match had Booker T win the 8-man eliminator match, so he is your new U.S. champion, and we are officially caught up here on our SmackDown timeline.
All right, so we are now in August, in the month of August 2004, from the August 2nd edition of the Observer newsletter. 7 announced matches for SummerSlam. The Raw brand has Chris Benoit versus Randy Orton for the world title, Triple H versus Eugene, Chris Jericho versus Batista, and then that ends up adding Edge later on, and Kane versus Matt Hardy. The SmackDown brand matches will be JBL versus Undertaker for the WWE title, Kurt Angle versus Eddie Guerrero, and John Cena versus Booker T for the US title. The long-term plan is to build toward Triple H versus Randy Orton in the big match at WrestleMania. With how over Orton got, him winning the belt and then being the schism between the group makes the most sense at this point in time. And nugget alert. Triple H originally wanted that match for this year's WrestleMania. So he initially, yes, he wanted it for WrestleMania 20.
Whoa, that would have been that. I felt like that would have been a little bit too soon, but I would have enjoyed that.
It says here that he recognized it was way too early for Orton, who had only really come to his own as a major star in the past 2 months. It was also too early to break up Evolution because some of the booking on their timetable. And then last year's booking plan, so the end of 2003, was to have Orton feud with Foley late last year, which ended up being delayed until WrestleMania, and then Shawn Michaels, with the idea being that those 2 guys would prep him for Triple H.
Oh, and that makes a lot of sense why they held it off until after WrestleMania, but then they kind of went right into the Triple H stuff because Shawn Michaels is having a baby. So
and then that would also explain why we got the extra Shawn and Triple H stuff at the end of the year.
Yep, that totally makes a lot of sense now. So Dave said the plan at this point is for Orton to beat Benoit for the title, with the one idea being Edge going heel and costing Benoit the match, leading to Edge versus Benoit, which was the program that we talked about earlier in this summer that got pushed to the side.
Yeah,
And
that was what was that? Well, that was Bad Blood, right? Where the idea was that, and then the next match, the Vengeance show, the thought was that was going to be where they went, and then they ended up going back with Trips.
Yes. So Triple H would be tied up with Eugene and stay out of the world title picture, leaving Jericho, Michaels, and Benoit as challengers for Orton over the fall and winter. There's talk of having Michaels return at SummerSlam, doing a run-in after the Kane and Hardy match. There's also an idea that Heidenreich and Paul Heyman would cost Undertaker the title since Heidenreich is getting Mordecai's vacated spot. It's unlikely they'd have the same angle twice on the show, but one or the other could actually happen. And I really actually think I would have liked the Michaels run-in here at SummerSlam with the Kane situation after Kane Pillmanized him.
Right. And for all three of those ideas would have worked just fine.
Right.
And Sean must not have been ready, because I'll tell you what, man, the Kane and Matt Hardy match left a lot to be desired. So Sean coming out here, and we'll get to that later, but that really could have, spiced up things with that one. But I actually thought that all three of those different booking plans were all good. I wouldn't have had a problem with any of them, just not all three of them on the same show.
It's been a little bit too much for SummerSlam.
Right. It's been a while since we've mentioned him, man. The Observer reports, quote, after an impressive 45-minute workout on July 27th, the Minnesota Vikings signed Brock Lesnar to a contract, and he'll start with them at training camp on July 30th, end quote. So he will be on a 1-year contract for the NFL rookie minimum salary of $230,000, and it's dependent on him making the main roster, which is still a long shot at this point in time. It's more likely that he'll get placed on the developmental roster at that point, and that would pay him $85,000. But he could possibly make the regular roster if he shows potential in preseason games, because if he is put on that developmental squad, he would be susceptible to teams signing him off of waivers. Again, all pending his preseason performance. Lesnar's being pegged as a defensive tackle because of his physical attributes and everything. So that's our little Brock update here. So, John, what happened on Raw this week?
So Dave says that this was the best Raw in a long time. This show had a Triple H promo segment with William Regal, where Triple H said he wanted to smash Eugene, and Regal came out to tell him he was the one who told Eugene to interfere with the Iron Man match in the first place. Orton did a promo saying he was going to become the youngest World Heavyweight Champion in history. Matt proposed to Lita, and she said yes.
All is well.
All is well. Edge was on the highlight reel, and the two started arguing. It finished with a brawl, setting up a match at SummerSlam. Regal beat Triple H via DQ when Trips busted Regal open with the brass knuckles before Regal could make his comeback, pummeled him with a sledgehammer. Regal did the stretcher job, and Trips said he was going to do the same to Eugene. But the main event had Orton, Flair, and Batista beating Jericho, Benoit, and Edge in a 6-man with Orton hitting the RKO for the pin. Not the first time we've seen that match either.
Correct. And look, how do you go wrong with these guys, right?
Right.
Like that's just it, is that no one's ever going to complain, especially whenever you got the Benoit Flair dynamic is really great.
Huh?
You know what I mean? Like that's good stuff, man. The SmackDown report had Cena pinning RVD in a match to get a U.S. title shot. After the match, Teddy Long told Booker T that he and Cena would be in a best-of-5 series for the U.S. title, with the first match coming at SummerSlam. Kurt Angle beat Charlie Haas in a match that went almost 15 minutes, and he's really trimmed down. And that was the first thing that I saw, man. Whenever watching that Eddie and Kurt match, I was like, holy cow, this dude is lean right now.
Yeah. Brother was drinking skim milk at that time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, off the heavy stuff. Kidman and Paul London beat the Bashams to retain. The Dudleys beat Mysterio and Spike Dudley after Spike faked an injury whenever he did the double foot stomp, grabbed his knee. That got Rey Mysterio pinned. And then post-match, he does the groin kick to Rey. He turns and he joins his cousin brothers, and they do the deal where he's the little guy that's calling all the shots.
Yeah.
As bad as it is, because the Dudleys wear me out too, I thought that this was good, and I liked this dynamic a lot because they got some reactions, man. You know, they got some heat for this. It was way better. This iteration of heel Dudleys was way better than the ones that just both lost and got Paul Bearer killed at Great American Bash.
I totally agree with that. We just didn't get up, drop the bombshell. It's like we're actually getting some actual heat in there.
Yeah. The final segment of the show then had JBL calling out The Undertaker to the ring, except it wasn't the actual Undertaker. And John, I'm going to let you take this from here, brother.
Yes, you can all go check this out on the shorts. They are posted there as well. But this is where we get a little Undertaker. It is a little person that comes out to the ring, and it's all of the short jokes, and JBL wants to get down at his level, and then actually the Undertaker does eventually come out, and while JBL is holding the little person and trying to give him a tombstone, throws him around. It's a very funny visual. And
dude, if this was filmed outside, it would have looked like the cow jumping over the moon. He was up so high.
Yes. And whenever Undertaker does choke slam, this little Undertaker literally lifts him to Jupiter and holds him. And
forgive me. It was Undertaker that had him up. You're right. My fault. Yeah, you're right, man. That was it.
What's funny is that unlike last week in our 99 show with the Raw is Jericho, where Undertaker laid China down very gingerly, he sent him to hell. He just threw him down so hard. Felt bad for the poor guy.
Yeah. Forgive me for missing that it was Taker, because of course it was Taker, because he's 6'10" allegedly, and not from this earth. He's from the shadow realm. And so he extended to the heavens, and then he sent him way down beneath, that poor fella. But I'll tell you what, man, that visual of them both doing the Undertaker pose, like, you know, like Taker goes down and he's on the knee and he puts his hand out and looks over, and that little fella's doing the same exact thing. Yeah. I freaking died. I thought that was awesome, man. I did.
And he had really good facials too. Like he was like, oh shit. Like,
yep.
Yeah, it was really good. It's so good.
Yep. Everybody did their job there. All right, brother, what you got for the Go Home Raw?
So for the Go Home Raw, the show started with a Diva segment, which is interrupted by Randy Orton, who was then interrupted by Chris Benoit. After the two go back and forth on the mic over Orton never tapping, Benoit throws him into a crossface and makes him tap. Lita told Matt the DNA test came back, but Kane is the father.
His boys can swim.
Storyline. It's Jericho beat Edge in a non-title match that went almost 20 minutes. We then get the Triple H hotel segment, and I sent this to Teddy over the weekend, and this was a literal horror movie scene where basically Regal told him to stay in the hotel room, and then Triple H knew he was going to go to the ring, so then he goes to the hotel room, beats Regal into a bloody pulp, and the way that it played out, man, I was getting scared even watching it, because I forgot that this happened.
He had blood all over the curtains. It did. It literally looked like Texas Chainsaw Massacre or something like that. That was a heck of a visual, dude.
It really was. But the main event had Benoit versus Triple H and Orton in a handicap match because Eugene was gone. Benoit fought them both for about 10 minutes when Flair interfered for the DQ. Post-match, Triple H pedigreed Benoit and Eugene came in to clear house.
And you got to love that Paul isn't on the top of the card, but Paul's match is the one that's getting the shine here. We literally have what's about to be the youngest WWE champion ever.
Right.
And the thing that closed the show is the Triple H Eugene angle.
Well, it's literally the hottest angle that they have on Raw, which I think that the Kane and Matt Hardy Lita deal is a very close second, but I don't think people were going to take Randy Orton winning the belt here seriously because of Triple H and Evolution and all that.
At that time, I absolutely didn't. I thought there was no way that was going to happen. I was caught completely off guard, and that's the truth.
Yep, same. But Goose, we are here at the Go Home Smackdown. What do you got for the Go Home Smackdown?
We got JBL and Jordan. The connection begins. They start the show with the long promo. JBL guarantees he'll beat The Undertaker, and then he announced Jordan as his chief of staff. Undertaker then beats Jordan via DQ after JBL interferes and lays out The Undertaker with a clothesline. Angle and Eddie do a face-off interview. Really intense, man. When they showed this on the pre-match cut-up, like it was true big match feel. Absolutely awesome segment. Finishes with Teddy Long having the two shake hands, and they do that like slow, reluctant, here's my hand and you're going to die. Yeah. I love that. And the main event was a Summer Games relay match. It had Cena and RVD and Charlie Haas beating Booker T, Luther Reigns, and Rene Dupree in 27 minutes and 13 seconds. The rules here were a series of 5-minute periods, and the finish saw RVD attack Booker. When he took a bump onto the floor, he threw him in, and Cena schoolboyed him for the fall. So off of that, some news notes that we got here. Even though he's toned down his style, Kurt Angle's already been told by management that he's taken too many bumps at house shows. So this guy's just addicted to flatbacks.
He loves a bump.
Yep.
This guy literally works himself into the ground.
Yeah, neck is on a thread, and it doesn't matter, dude. I'm good.
It's literally like that Gucci backpack, basically.
You got to put that one up, right?
Oh, yep.
Okay. So also, Matt Hardy's knee turned out to be far worse than it was initially believed after he was examined by Dr. James Andrews. And so days before SummerSlam, Matt Hardy gets checked out by Dr. James Andrews in Birmingham. It is revealed that he has a minor tear of his MCL, a severely torn meniscus, and his ACL is totally destroyed, all in his left knee.
That's really hard to believe. And I guess that answers why the match at SummerSlam was a little bit shorter than what I expected.
Correct. And, if you don't have Sean ready, you get what you get, right? Like you do whatever you can do. So Andrews said that the ACL had been gone for some time, and he was amazed that he was even able to work with it. So he'll be having reconstructive surgery. He'll be out 6 to 8 months. Worse, it was also found that he's got bone spurs in his hip, and he's going to have to get that taken care of at some point. And correct me if I'm wrong. Is this injury? Is this the one where he loses his lady IRL?
It's even crazier, too, that he was doing all of this with no ACL.
And it's 20 years ago. And the dude was on TV last week.
Right. I like to make jokes now about Matt, about him walking around stiff-legged Jones, but it makes a lot more sense now. The guy's been through it. Right.
And what I was alluding to before wasn't the storyline. Was this where he's off the road and Edge and Lita hook up?
Yep, I believe this is it, because that is literally the next year, or it's over the next course of the next year or so.
That happens?
That happens.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because when we rewatched the Mysterio and Eddie ladder match for Dom at SummerSlam 05, these two were on that SummerSlam. Yep. So, yes. Oh, my gosh, man. So not only did Matt Hardy have his bride-to-be impregnated by the son of the devil, forged in fire. That baby is forged in fire. Uh-huh. He then ends up losing her IRL to the You Think You Know Me guy.
Right.
Oh,
literally, he's got no ACL. He has a partially torn MCL, and he's got bone spurs in his hip. Literally everything you just mentioned here about this storyline, that's insanity. And he goes off the road here now, and then he ends up losing Lita, spoiler alert, to Edge. And then that leads to the big Bite This interview and all of that comes in 05, which we'll talk about probably, I'm sure, next year at length.
Ain't that something, man? Poor Matt. Good on him for not having a crippling substance abuse problem. That had to be a really, really rough stretch, brother. Holy cow. So my last little nugget here is that while Triple H and Orton is the idea for WrestleMania, it's not been decided which one is going to be the face in the Evolution breakup. So Triple H is the natural one because he has the most power. and he knows that he's better off as the heel, the push is probably going to be for Randy Orton. Orton has been getting cheered at house shows. They are using him getting cheered, winning the belt against Edge, and in some other places as justification for the turn. But Triple H is getting a lot of cheers at house shows too. And this is the thing, man. We talked about this. It's because of the cool heel factor. They've outsidered themselves to where they're the bad guys, but you know what? They never lose and they look good winning. And so you can't help but get behind them, right? So I thought that was really interesting that it's not set in stone which way they're going to go yet.
Yes. And then for my last little nugget here before we get into the main event, Lesnar was moved to nose tackle after Vikings coach Mike Tice. Talked about Mike Tice before here on the Podski. We got him back here again. So welcome back to the show, Mike.
Show the love boat.
But Mike Tice felt that there's no way he'd be able to make the team or even the practice squad at defensive tackle. The Vikings already had 10 solid players at defensive tackle. Imagine having 10 defensive tackles on your roster in the NFL today.
Right. Yeah, that's not a thing anymore. Well, you know what, though? The difference is that a defensive tackle in 2024 is built much different than a defensive tackle in 2004.
That's also very true, too.
You know, there is that.
So it's also said here that the team is only going to keep 8 of the defensive tackles out of the 10. Lesnar played on the kickoff team as well as the final minutes of the August 14th Vikings win over the Arizona Cardinals in the preseason opener. Lesnar went into the game with 6 minutes and 26 seconds left. He got a big pop when he came onto the field. He assisted on 1 tackle, and when they announced his name, he got a big reaction as well.
Yeah, people rooting for you, Brock.
Yeah, they were actually rooting for him here.
Yeah, this is really cool.
So we just speed warped through time here through the summer of 2004 outside of the pay-per-views. And we're finally here at the biggest show of the summer, Teddy. Take us to SummerSlam 2004.
Yes, sir. So the show came to you August 15th, 2004 from the Air Canada Centre in Toronto. The show got 144 thumbs up. And the reason I say that number is 86 thumbs down, 142 thumbs in the middle. We only have, quick math here, what do we got? About 400-ish responses. Like, this is a low response number for the SummerSlam show. Interesting. So 38.7% thumbs up, 23% thumbs down, and 38.2% thumbs in the middle. Best match overall with a bullet is Benoit versus Orton. The worst match, Divas Dodgeball got 110 votes, and Booker T and John Cena got 95.
The Benoit Orton match is really good, but I would argue that I thought that the triple threat match for the IC title was my favorite match of the night.
Yeah, that was awesome. It was a lot of fun. It was.
Diva Dodgeball was the shits, but I didn't think that Booker T and John Cena was that bad. I can't believe
I was surprised to read that too. Yeah.
Really surprised about that.
So Dave said the story of the SummerSlam 2004 show was supposed to be Randy Orton winning the world title from Chris Benoit. Instead, the story was crowd reactions on a show that sold out with an announced crowd of 17,640. This was sold out weeks in advance and had an approximate $1.3 million Canadian, $1 million US live gate. The WWE hasn't had a crowd like that for a show since WrestleMania, but when it was over, it seemed the company didn't want the crowd that it got. And dude, they were shook the entire show about this. And I mean, announcers and referees, the announcers couldn't stop talking about it. And certain people, Taker especially, were like, you could see it on their face that they were irritated, man, big time.
This crowd was strange. Like, I don't understand what was happening. I mean, I guess we'll talk about it in the Undertaker match for what happened in the crowd during that time. But this crowd was just, they seemed so flippy floppy. They just were all over the place. I understand the frustration with it because I was frustrated watching it.
Right. And I guess it's one of those things where, Toronto's huge things happen there and they are known they're known for the Hogan Warrior match. They're known for the Rock and Hogan match, where they helped turn the Hogan. You have the Orndorff and Hogan. My gosh, that's 3 straight Hogan matches that I said. But that was the largest crowd in North American history until WrestleMania 3. Like they are mega crowds there, man. And I don't know. I mean, hey, the people pay their money. They could do what they want to do. But it was like all 17,000 of them were in cahoots to be like, let's tank this one.
Yeah, they totally tanked it here. Personally, for me, when I started the show, first, I want to start off by saying what they did with like the Summer Games and the Olympics and all that. I really liked it with them using the superstars, like doing the Olympic Games stuff with the commercials. I really enjoyed that. That was really good. However, whatever this music was that is on Peacock absolutely made me shut the show off, because I was like, this is the most generic BS music that they threw together on this hype reel, and it totally took me out of it. And then as soon as we come into the show, we get the Dudleys with Spike, and I was like, nope, I can't do it today. So I literally shut the show off, but I turned it back on, and we get kicked off with the Dudleys, like I mentioned, versus Paul London, Rey Mysterio, and Billy Kidman. I literally wrote, what a ragtag group of a tag team here with London, Mysterio, and Kidman. We have Corporate Kidman and Jobber Kidman. Bubba Dudley is the worst, but Spike here was awesome. He was a geek for years, and now he's pulling all the strings for the group. It was really weird to see Rey without gloves here. Like, Rey had wrist tape and no gloves. I thought that was awkward as well. Kidman slingshot Spike onto the middle rope, and he set up a 619 by Rey, and then Kidman hit the shooting star on Spike, which was a really cool spot for a near fall. Devon brought Kidman back into the ring where Bubba was going to belt Kidman. Billy was able to escape the belt, but not the 3D. Spike came in for the pin and the win.
Yeah, I was not ready. I was very taken off guard to see Paul London and Billy Kidman not only as a tag team, but come out with the belts. Like that was something that knocked me down right away. The music thing, and I don't know this, but I'm assuming this. Have you paid attention to those other shows that we've watched? They always have the plugs in for the Saliva song, the whatever song. There were none of those on this show. So I'm assuming that they didn't retain whatever they needed to for this show's song.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense.
Which the iMovie, just, whatever copyright free stuff on there.
Right. Yeah.
I thought that this was fine. This was the most enjoyable Dudleys that I've seen in a long time. With what we've been seeing, especially this 2004 reign with the Dudleys. Dave Meltzer said Kidman and London need personality, Kidman in particular, but Mysterio has that and they all can work. London did a lot of nice moves, particularly jumping off Kidman's back with the dive outside the ring. Finish was the 3D on Kidman with Spike getting the pin and 2 3/4 stars. And then what is so funny about that is that Billy Kidman does not have a personality here, and he did not have one in his first run. What was it, like a year or two prior? And the personality that he had was whenever he just wore a wife beater and jorts to the ring.
Right.
How do you have more personality in wife beater and jorts than you do looking like an actual professional?
It literally makes no sense. That is true. He literally has no personality here. He's so vanilla here.
Shooting star looked good, though.
The shooting star always looks But when I say the show started off terrible for me, they reeled me back in. They casted that line out with the first match, but I was hooked on here, and they reeled me into the boat because we got Kane versus Hardy till death do us part match, and Matt didn't wait for the bell here. He took over this match early, and what's so great about Kane is that no matter what, that uppercut is going to cut off anyone's momentum. But Lawler was a little bit insufferable here in this match. But I did like the way that they used Lita and how they teased her like on the ringside and everything. I really liked how they did that throughout this match. But Matt hit a twist of fate on the outside, but Kane was able to get back in before the 10 count. Lita threw the ring bell into the ring and distracted the ref while Matt hit Kane over the head with it. But Kane somehow got his foot on the rope to break the count. Matt tried to suplex Kane off the top rope, but Kane choke slams Matt to hell from the top rope. Like we say that Undertaker lifted the little Undertaker to the heavens. This was a little bit higher than that because Kane pulled no punches here and he fucking laid that thing in there. That thing was stiff.
I wasn't ready for it, dude. So first off, as is the case with all of this retro wrestling, Mrs. Mongoose happens to walk in as the video package comes on, right?
Oh, yeah.
The best part is, whereas she normally looks at me like I should be ashamed of myself whenever it's Terry Runnels or whatever, this one, when Lita says it's Kane's or Matt, you're not the father, she sat down. So it actually pulled her in, especially because you had half-shaven head Kane just so happy that he's got a little one on the way. And then it starts, dude. And with all of this, which we do go into more details about what's going on in previous shows. And the bad thing is we spent a pretty significant chunk of time going through all these angles, and we didn't know justice compared to the actual percentage of TV time and attention that was given to it. You know, we would highlight it, but it would be a major part of these shows. These guys get into the ring, they start to get going, and I'm expecting juice. You know what I mean? Like I'm expecting weapons. I'm expecting these things to happen. And it's just a match that ends in a choke slam, and Kane beat him clean. He's the dad, and now he gets to marry her. Yeah. So bless, at least the child will have a two-parent home. But yeah, it was something else. It took me out of it. It was so fast. And I normally wouldn't say that about a 5-minute match that I really didn't want to see anyways. It's normally 5 minutes too long. But with this one, I thought that I'm just surprised. I'm surprised at how short it was. However, getting that Matt Hardy context helps a lot. Mm-hmm. And then how about this? Dave says Hardy posted on his website that he needed knee surgery and that this would be his last match, which caused a lot of internal unhappiness because of the feeling it gave away the result. Any thoughts of Shawn Michaels getting involved here were dropped because his wife hasn't given birth yet and was actually overdue by Showtime.
Oh,
so
makes sense.
So I wonder if he posted that and they said, hey, Matt, we cut you from 15 to 6. And Kane's going over with the choke slam.
Yeah, you better do it from the top rope too.
Yeah, I seriously wonder if that wasn't it. If that wasn't a little heat to be like, brother, you're going to go out there, half glorified squash, you'll get a little bit of shine, and then it's going to be over for you. Dave gave it a 1.25 stars, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, totally fine with it. So we go backstage with Randy cutting a promo on himself saying he's going to be the youngest world heavyweight champion in history, but he's interrupted by John Cena, who actually got a big popski here.
Really cool foreshadowing too, because actually, that's going to be a thing for a decade.
Right. Literally the two stars literally there together at a SummerSlam. That was really cool. That's a good pick. So our next match is John Cena versus Booker T for the U.S. title, and this is a best of 5 series, with this being the first match. And as we mentioned before, Cena got a huge reaction, and that was the first thing I noticed about this match. Booker T basically did a jumping backslap from the apron to the outside after Cena took a nasty bump out there. Like, what? I don't know what that was. Booker hooked in a camel clutch, but Cena was able to muscle out of it and immediately ate a spine buster and a sidewalk slam from Booker. Cena was showing signs of life, but Booker cut him off, and then he hit a spinneroonie. As Booker was standing up, Cena hit the FU, and he wins the first of the best of 5 series.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add with this beyond the reaction. That would have been the thing that I noted here, is that Cena was a big deal. Meltzer said you could really see the difference in quality of a worker that Booker is compared with Benoit or Angle, who both got great matches out of Cena. Most of this was watching Cole miscall kicks and Taz correcting him, particularly when Cole called a jumping side kick or leg lariat a spin kick when Booker never spun. Lots of timing issues at the end, 3/4 of a star.
We go backstage with Teddy Long and Eric Bischoff walks in, and he calls Eric the head cracker in charge of Raw. I exploded. I was not expecting Teddy to come in with a zinger like that.
This guy was managing Jindrak.
Yeah, it's crazy because you're right. He's literally managing Jindrak, and now he's the GM of SmackDown.
Yeah, dude. And he just like you moving on up. He did it, man. He took the escalator to the top.
Literally, he did. So Eric basically runs through the fact that he has seen all of these other SmackDown GMs and that Teddy is going to be no different. Teddy then responds with he has no problem taking Eugene and making him the star that he should be on SmackDown, and that anybody else wants to leave Raw, they will get the same treatment on SmackDown. Our next match is the Batista versus Jericho versus Edge triple threat match for the IC title. And this was probably, I don't say this is match of the night for me, but this was a hell of a good match, I thought. We're still waiting on the On This Day music to hit for Edge. That's coming soon, but I was excited whenever I saw these three guys come out for this match. So Batista attacked Edge to start the match, and then Batista went for a Batista bomb on Jericho, but then Edge ran in and took out the Animal's knee and gets his revenge from the attack at the beginning of the match. Edge threw Batista to the outside for some surprising boos here, especially whenever this is Edge's hometown. They were really behind Jericho here. Jericho and Edge had a stare down, and they hooked it up where Edge almost got the pin on an inside cradle, and then again on a crossbody with his feet on the ropes. Jericho got Edge in the walls, but Batista was able to break him up. Edge was set up for the spear on Batista, but was intercepted by Jericho, which I thought was a really cool spot. Batista hit the Batista bomb on Jericho for a near fall. Jericho hit the running bulldog on Edge, and Batista was on the apron. Jericho takes him out with a springboard kick. When Jericho got up, Edge was there for the spear, and Edge retains the IC title, and I thought this was a ton of fun.
The finish was awesome. I really liked the way that they got Dave out of there, and there's Jericho at this point in time. He could take a pin, no issues, no problem. The crazy thing is that, as you said, with the hometown, because I was just expecting an insane Edge reaction here, because at this point in time, he's teasing being heelish. Mm-hmm. And, the Canada fans, man, they could go wonky. And I was like, man, are they going to be into this guy from Toronto, little heel flair? And absolutely not. They treated him like the geek of the match with the cool heel and the uber charismatic Jericho. Dave said nothing wrong with it, but it was far too short, 2.25 stars.
Next is what I personally feel was match of the night, Kurt Angle versus Eddie Guerrero. Please, everyone, go back and check out the Eddie Guerrero bonus show. We touch on this angle in that show, but we don't go at length in it because we talk about it here with the SummerSlam shows and all that. But please go check that out here. We have Kurt coming to the ring with the straps down. And when he's coming to the ring with the straps down, you're getting a banger. Weirdly got Let's Go Angle chants from the beginning. Eddie got Angle in an angle lock, but Kurt was able to get out, and then he hit Eddie with the angle slam. Kurt pulled the straps down and put Eddie in the angle lock. Eddie picks Kurt's ankle and reverses into his own angle lock again, and we go back and forth here with this submission, and this was some really cool transitions that they were pulling on each other here. Eddie was able to break out by grabbing the bottom rope. Luther Reigns hit Eddie as the ref's back was turned, and Kurt got the angle lock, sank back in on Eddie again. Eddie got an armbar on Kurt, and Kurt was unlacing Eddie's boots, and he sank the chokehold in. Eddie hit his own angle slam on Kurt while both were laid out, and they were trying to get up just before the 10 count. Eddie hit the Three Amigos, went to the top rope whenever Angle ran up for the Olympic press and threw Eddie off the top rope.
That was an awesome spot. Yeah, that was an awesome spot.
Kurt went for the Angle slam, but Eddie countered into a DDT. Eddie went for the frog splash, but no one was home. Kurt hit the Angle slam for a near fall. Kurt ripped Eddie's boot off and locked in the angle lock, but Eddie pulled the ref into Kurt. Eddie booted Kurt and Luther, and as the ref was sitting up, Eddie threw the boot at Angle and made it look like Kurt hit him with it, and that was just such an amazing spot. Eddie goes for the frog splash, but Angle kicked out. Angle sank in a tight ankle lock on Eddie, tapped out. So Kurt is your winner, and what a match. This was insanity.
And you know what? This match only went 13 minutes and 38 seconds. And the weird thing about it is it felt like it went longer than that, but not in a bad way. Like they did a lot of stuff in 13 and a half minutes. I love that not only did Kurt go over, but the way that he went over. It was comeuppance for Eddie for cheating the first time. And as much of a nerd as Kurt has been the whole time as a GM and everything else, what's so good about Kurt Angle is that he's smart enough in the ring. As much of a doof as he is backstage, he's so smart in the ring that this boot won't cost me now. And because you beat me with it last time, I'm going to break your unprotected ankle here.
Yeah, it was really
loved it.
Loved it.
Yeah, I thought that this was awesome. Dave Meltzer says they sold it like it was an unprotected leg, speaking of him having the boot off. And after a while, with Angle pulling him into the center and turning it into a heel hook, Guerrero submitted. In reality, ankle locks are far less effective when opponents don't have boots on because the boot limits the ankle's flexibility. But since 99.9% of the audience wouldn't know that, it doesn't matter. 3 3/4 stars. And to me, I was just thinking, oh my gosh, he's going to twist his foot off. And then I read that and I was like, oh wait, yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah.
But it worked, dude. It worked. It worked in the moment, worked in the match. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, I did too. So we move on to the next big angle, which is Triple H versus Eugene, and Eugene being so happy to come out and see the crowd. But as soon as he sees Triple H and gets mad, dude, I exploded. I couldn't. It was just such good work by Eugene here. The 10 count punch in the corner and then him checking to make sure that he counted up his fingers and made sure he did 10 was so great. Hunter baited the ref into thinking he was hurt and outsmarted Eugene so he could finally take control of the match. Hunter pulls the vintage Flair in the corner on his knees, but Eugene wasn't falling for it and he hit the rock bottom. Eugene went for the people's elbow, but Hunter stood up and hit a hellacious spine buster. Eugene hulked up to many boos, hit a stunner on Hunter, and Flair made his way down to the ring. Eugene hit the Hogan leg drop, but Hunter kicked out. Flair distracted on the apron, but was knocked down. Hunter went for the pedigree, but Eugene countered with his own pedigree here. Flair put Hunter's foot on the rope, and Eugene went after Flair. Flair pulled Eugene down by his foot, and he was ejected. As Flair was making his way back up the ramp, William Regal came out with brass knuckles, and he took out Flair. Eugene watched Regal, but Hunter hit the pedigree and won the match. And the best part of this match was Hunter picking up Flair by his boot and literally dragging him through the curtain at the top of the stage.
That was absolutely incredible. Who's better than Ric Flair, man?
Oh, so good.
So with this, man, I did think that once Eugene started to get hammered with booze fast, I was like, oh man, this isn't going to go well. Like I was expecting it to just get booed out of the building. And I even texted you when I was watching this because this match was laid out so well. I'm not going to say it was like worked so well because these guys are good and they just did their good things. But the layout of the match was so good that they couldn't help but pop for Eugene, especially whenever he did the middle fingers and the stunner and everything. Yeah. And that's a lot of credit to whoever laid that one out, man, because they had a foolproof match, literally, because that crowd was ready to just destroy Eugene and they didn't let it happen. Meltzer said the crowd booed Eugene, which is happening more and more. And this is brutal, dude. I forgot about this. And he said it and I went, ugh. He's becoming this summer's Zach Gowen. And I remembered what happened to Gowen when he went to Toronto. They had to redo the crowd noise. It was so embarrassing to the company. So we might have to go back and check out Zach Gowen. Zach Gowen's ventured up north. He gave it 2.5 stars. And I thought that, seriously, I would have said that this was a 3-star match. This was good, not great. And I had fun watching it. I didn't mind this one at all.
I didn't mind it either. I thought it was a great blow off to the feud. So next we get Diva Dodgeball. And the only thing I have written here is that Michelle McCool was out there looking like Nolan Ryan. And I'm sure that caught the dead man's eye. She literally peppered everyone's tailgate and dominated this challenge for the win. And like literally the ref was just only handing her the balls and she just kept pummeling everybody in this match.
Yeah. And we had the visor get nicked.
Yeah.
And dude, if that was booked, if that was a worked visor nicking, that might be the most incredible thing that I've ever seen. Again, these ladies all came out and I just texted John and I'm like, brother, they're about to play dodgeball. This girl just wants a contract. And little does she know in 16 years, she's going to be making a short stack for the dead man, dude. It's just the most incredible thing.
It is.
So it was what it was. You know, nice little angle there with Trish getting hot and throwing some punches. So there's been much worse Diva segments out there. I will absolutely say that.
Yeah, totally agree here. Well, we get to our semi-main event, which is Undertaker versus JBL, and Undertaker showed you why he's the big dog early. JBL cut him off on the old school. Undertaker was able to hit the old school, and then he got JBL in a triangle choke. Orlando Jordan, who we mentioned earlier, was able to pull JBL's leg under the rope for a rope break. Taker tried to give the big boot to JBL in the corner, but Orlando ate it on the apron. That was the opening that JBL needed. He went to work on Taker's leg by wrapping it around the ring post and hitting it with a chair. The crowd got the wave started when JBL had Taker in a leg hold. The wave continued for minutes. This crowd didn't give a shit about this match. They started chanting Spanish table while both were ringside. Things got a little sloppy when JBL was trying to put Taker in another leg hold. Taker took over after that, gave JBL a choke slam, and JBL kicked out. Taker went for the tombstone, but JBL reversed it and hit a clothesline from hell. And then Taker kicked out. JBL went for the clothesline in the corner, but he took out the ref. And then Taker went for the double high boot, and then they took each other out. Jordan was still at ringside. He threw the belt into the ring. JBL belted Taker with the ref still down. Jordan grabbed the ref, counted his arms like Weekend at Bernie style, and Taker kicked out at 2.
Man, did I lose it at that. I did when he picked up and whatever. I think it had to have been Cole screaming, "He can't do that. This doesn't count." I was dying, man. I thought that spot was awesome.
It was great. I got up for that one. Taker gave JBL the last ride and JBL somehow kicked out at 2. Taker went for the tombstone, but JBL and Orlando ran in. Jordan ate the high boot from Taker and grabbed the title, hit JBL over the head with it. And then, of course, Nick Patrick saw that one. They called for the bell, and JBL retained the title via DQ. This finish sucked, but Taker continued the beatdown after the match. Taker ripped off the horns of the limo, so my heart was a little broken there. But he power slammed JBL on the hood. Taker then pulled the straps down, came back to the limo, and chokeslammed JBL through the roof of the limo. This was really good. I really enjoyed this, but the crowd absolutely shit all over it.
Yeah, my favorite part of the match early was the bump that Nick Patrick took whenever he got squashed in the corner.
Yeah.
When he literally fell down the way that Gabby J does in Super Punch Out whenever you knock him out. Yeah. Like he in slow motion twirled. It was like a ballerina, dude. He twirled as he hit the ground. I absolutely loved that. But I did not like this match. Thought that this was a big fat stinker. And especially when, and I should say the first 3/4 of it, I was not into it all. And when that crowd was doing the wave, I was like, okay, they're doing the wave because there is a big brawling Haas Texan Wall Street heel and a dead guy exchanging pre-white belt MMA holds. What are we doing, man? Fight! Like, just throw hands. All they want to see big dudes do is throw hands and throw each other around. And I just thought that the layout for this one, as good as the Triple H one was, this was the complete opposite. That post-match was great, though. It was.
I think that's what saved it for me was that post-match, especially whenever they stretch. They put JBL in the neck brace and stretchered him out, and then the crowd.
And Orlando Jordan ran to put his belt on him as he was stretchered out of the ring. I laughed at that, too. Meltzer said that the idea that Undertaker could have lost due to Heidenreich's interference and still done the post-match where he would have been the one left standing at the end, would have been the move. And I agree.
Mhm.
Like, why not have that have been the reason?
Right.
Because if you're going to get a crowd finish that's going to make the crowd boo, well, then set up your next program.
Right. Exactly.
And 2 stars on that one.
So our main event is Randy Orton versus Chris Benoit for the World Heavyweight Championship, and they hooked it up with the test of strength to start, and you know how I feel about the test of strength here. They followed that up with some good mat wrestling. Benoit went for the sharpshooter, but Orton got his own sharpshooter locked in here. Benoit muscled his way out of it, almost got the crossface locked in. We got more Spanish tables chants as soon as they got to the outside. Benoit did another tope, just like he did in that Iron Man match, except this one was way worse. He goes headfirst into the barricade on the outside. Orton did a gut-wrench backbreaker that looked so good.
Mhm.
Benoit hit the 3 Germans, went to the top rope for the headbutt, but Orton put his feet up and kicked Benoit right in the face. That looked brutal.
This match was laid in. Dude, he took Orton to Suplex City, and I loved it.
Benoit got the crossface in, but Randy rolled out of it, and it worked. Randy hit the RKO out of nowhere, literally nowhere, and he wins. Randy is your youngest World Heavyweight Champion in history. It came out of nowhere. The post-match made it felt huge. Benoit stuck his hand out for the shake. Randy hesitated, shook his hand, so we got a babyface turn for Randy Orton. And we also didn't get a single Evolution member coming out after Randy won to congratulate him. And that's how we go off the air for SummerSlam 04.
And booked really well, man, because we'd said about the cliffhanger that was left with the Iron Man match where Randy wasn't out there.
Mhm.
So, I think that is a really cool layer.
Huh?
Again, man, when Benoit just started throwing him all over the ring, I loved it. Orton getting his mouth busted open, and still fighting through. This was really good, man. And this was a very fitting main event, and it held up very well. Dave gave it 4.25 stars, and we've said it before, 4+ pre-2015 is a huge deal. So he loved that one.
Yeah, huge deal. But let us know in the comments what you thought about this episode. This was an amazing SummerSlam. So let us know what your favorite match was in the comments, and we'll get to it. Next week, we are back again on our SummerSlam tour. We got SummerSlam 99. I cannot wait to talk about that one because we got a great one. It's one of my favorite main events with Triple H, Mankind, and Steve Austin in the main event for the WWF Championship. So tune in next week, and we will see you next time on the Podski.